she was the moon, and I was a photographer who was lonely, and she came down from the sky to be my friend.
Who are you?
I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller.
In telling stories about gay characters.
The world was filled with people who occupy different intersections of otherness.
And I was fortunate enough to get in front of creative teams that were woke enough to see my light, to have conversations with others.
Who is this biracial angel?
Trans women and trans men.
I celebrate myself. Celebrate yourself and love each other.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of JBC Presents Conversations with Others. I'm Jeffrey Bowyer-Chapman, and I am so excited to have today's guest with me. We're doing things a bit differently this season as social distancing is still in full effect. So for the first time, I will be recording from my home in West Hollywood, and my guest today is joining me via Zoom. She is a fellow Canadian prairie girl, born and raised, an Emmy-winning actress, Broadway star, human rights activist, feminist, LGBTQ advocate, and one of the grooviest little weirdos I know.
I love that.
Who are you?
Oh my God. That's like my least favorite question in so many ways. I love asking it of other people. I love like finding it out about other people, but I've always had this thing where I'm like, I think I'm too like watery to be anything. I feel so changeable. I struggle to define myself in any way. And I think for a long time, like so much of my identity has just been like actor, and then whatever that entails trickles down from that. Who am I?
Let's start with your name.
Oh, I'm Tatiana Maslany. That's who I am.
Hi, Tat.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good, honey. It's so good to see your face.
You too.
Your big, beautiful, smiling, sunshiny face.
Big old head.
Yeah, that big old head of curly hair, just like mine. You're all the way up in Toronto right now.
Yeah.
How are things going up in Canada?
They're okay. I mean, I don't know really. It feels very like Canada feels like the inside of my house right now, and that's kind of it.
You decided to go up to Canada when all of this COVID started to go down. You left Los Angeles for...
Yeah, I panicked.
You did? What were you feeling? What was going on with you at that time?
I think I just felt this, obviously, like the leadership just felt very precarious in the States. I felt like I'm sure a lot of people have felt for so long, and I finally got like a taste of it, which was like that I'm not gonna be safe here. I'm not safe in this environment. I'm not gonna be taken care of by, the government or whoever's in charge. And I felt like Canada felt like a safer place to land, and that decision was like laden in privilege, and I realized that, especially like being here now, how I'm fortunate to have two places that I can be dependent on what suits me,
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that though, that feeling of uncertainty or feeling unsafe or unsettled. I have the blessing, I'm an American citizen. I'm a dual American and Canadian citizen, so at least I feel like I have some grounding here, and I feel like I have some sense of protection here with citizenship, whether or not that's me fooling myself. It gives me some sense of comfort and solace throughout all of this. But you're just on a visa, right? Working in the States.
Yeah, and my job finished a while ago, so I think it was also like, I think my impulse in a lot of these situations is to like dart, go somewhere.
The fight or flight instinct.
Yeah, I guess I flight.
Yeah.
I used to think I fight because I had this one time, me and my friend Tess were like walking down the street, and our friend jumped out of a bush and he scared us, and she ran away, and I ran at him with a fist. I was like, oh, cool, I'm a fighter, but I'm definitely a flighter.
You're so funny. It's, when all of this started to happen, I considered my options, as I think all of us had to do. I think that the two biggest concerns about staying in America were, one, the healthcare system, and two, the gun laws here, or the lack thereof. It's the way that we translate that fear and how it manifests physically. And in this country, it tends to manifest physically with this need to protect yourself. And
Yes.
self-protection comes with guns.
Yes, totally. Totally. That's like one of the resources available, like readily available to people to feel like they have some control or some, yeah. And that could be like a default thing is very, very disturbing.
Yeah, and I feel safe here. I feel like things are pretty much in order for the most part. I mean, we're now officially 1 month into social distancing, physical quarantining, whatever you want to call it. And, LA is a pretty good place to be. We're very, very blessed. And once again, all of this comes, I recognize, as well, from a place of privilege. I have a beautiful home to reside in, an outdoor space, gorgeous weather. LA is not a pedestrian city. You're in your car everywhere you go, so you're pretty much physically distant from people. So I figured it was my best bet just to stay put.
Oh yeah, I think, and you seem really happy there. Like it feels like you're home.
Isn't it crazy? So the thing, I'm like going back and forth on this emotional roller coaster where I'm feeling kind of guilty for being so okay right now. And it's not necessarily having to do, like, I recognize I'm very blessed that I have like a kitchen full of food and I'm healthy. And I have a roof over my head and I don't have worries in that regard. But I'm also just such an extreme introvert that this is like not much of a change of pace for me. And I have everything I need. I mean, my boyfriend is here with me, who I'm so incredibly compatible with when it comes to living together, that it just makes it's just such a blessing. We're cooking together every night. We're, watching the things that we didn't have time to watch. We just have all this this abundant amount of quality time together right now. I'm not taking for granted for a second. I'm just so keenly aware of it.
I also think that they're like, not in every circumstance, but the fruits of like what you've built for yourself are very evident at this point, whether those structures are strong or not, relationship wise, internally, like who you are as a person. Like, I think the fact that you feel that kind of like good right now is like a testament to a lot of work to get to that place, because I think this is like really leveled things down to kind of like their core element. You know what I mean? Like the core truth of what they are.
Definitely. I mean, which you and I were just discussing this the other day, and it comes back to that question of who are you once you strip away all of the things, the elements of otherness, the things that separate us as a species, and it just comes straight down to what connects us and what do we all have in common as a species. And this situation in particular has really just laid that out in a very clear and plain way for us to see.
Yeah, in some regards, I feel like my otherness is a reflection of other people, is reflecting off of them how different I feel to how they are, or the way I see the world in response to or in relation to. So to have that kind of communal experience where we're all dealing with something in a universal way, like really just like bare bones universal way. It's an interesting time to be discussing otherness, because it feels like, I think for me, my otherness always felt connected to, obviously, to the world that we knew, the way the world was, which was like social things, like expression of gender or expression of who I was or my artistry or whatever, or sense of humor or things like that. But when you like take that away, it's like, okay, what is otherness outside of the context of society?
Completely. And what are you discovering about yourself? Because unlike myself, you are not an introvert. You are quite an extrovert in the sense that you very much get your energy. You go out a lot. I mean, you're so much more social than I am. You go out dancing all the time. You're with friends, dinners and clubbing. And how are you dealing with all of this?
It's tough, and I think like so much of my context has changed in the last year. Like, I haven't really spoken about it, but like big breakup, big change, moving across the country, all of these things. Like the context has been stripped away, and in so many ways there was freedom in that, because suddenly I was like, because I'd thought for a long time that I was very antisocial and kind of like didn't enjoy, like I liked going out, but I wasn't going to do it all the time. And then I went nuts. Like I was just like, oh my God, this is my favorite thing on the planet. Like, is going out, dancing, like seeing people. Just like, I love people. I love getting to know people. I love talking for hours on a walk with somebody, and like that's like my favorite shit. So, and it's nice to touch people too. I like touching.
Oh, honey, do you know your love language? Are you familiar with the book, The Five Love Languages?
No, I keep looking for like a quick like Coles note, so I can just be like, oh yeah, it's that one, and then like
I'll see if I can find a link and I'll send it to you.
Do you know yours?
Yeah, I mean, mine are definitely words of affirmation and physical touch, and those are also my boyfriend Eric's two. It's very convenient. The other three are gift giving, quality time, and acts of service. So those less important to me, but I feel like in this time specifically, the physical touch thing, it's huge for people. It's so big for people who I think we realize how much humans need each other, and in a time like this, more so than any other, we realize how much we really need each other as a species to survive.
Totally. And in terms of the physical touch thing too, I wonder if you had a similar experience, but like I grew up so kind of I was like in musical theater and stuff like that, so people were always touching, and like I was quite scared of it. Like I was like, touching meant like you were married, because I also went to like a Catholic school. So for like casual touch is like a thing that I've grown to like realize that I love, and that it still like carries a little bit of oof for me. Like,
oh, that's so interesting.
But it's definitely like top. But I think because of Catholicism.
When was the last time you were hugged? Do you remember?
Oh my God. I just got off the phone with my therapist, and she was like, wow, it was 6 weeks since you were last touched.
Oh, honey.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I just wanna give you a hug.
I know, that would.
It's tough.
Nice.
Even I'm such a touchy-feely person. I'm so physically intimate with my friends. I mean, I'll like crush you in a hug when I say goodbye to you. I'm so physically intimate with my friends, and last week I had to go drop off some Unreal swag, some stuff at Constance Zimmer's house, because we're auctioning off some Unreal stuff for charity, and staying 10 feet away from each other and not hugging was like the most bizarre exchange or interaction I've ever had with her. I just really realized how I'm really looking forward to a day when we can all, as a friend, as a species, get back in the swing of things and get our platonic love on.
Oh my God, me too.
So let's talk about the beginning. Where you started. So we talked about that we're both from Canada, and we actually met for the first time, I don't even know how many years ago. I think it was like 2012, maybe, in LA, through our mutual friend, our mutual bestie, Elise Levesque. I remember the first time we met. I don't know if you do.
I don't remember anything ever. I know I remember being in cars with you. I remember being on dance floors with you. I remember being at whatchamacallit, that great Laurel Hardware with you.
We met for the first time in LA in, I think it was 2012, because it was before I was living it was well before I was living in New York still. It was before I was living here. And I was staying with Elise, and her and I went for coffee at Commissary on Fairfax in West Hollywood. And
Mhm.
and you were there, and you were her tiny little friend Tat I'd heard so much about over so many years. You were just this tiny little pumpkin muffin faced squeezable little ball of light with big curly hair. Um,
Uh,
and I just remember you being so sweet but very quiet. And I remember
huh.
that it was going to take a minute for not to break you or crack you necessarily, but to get in. Like there was, I could tell immediately that you don't just let everybody in without them in a way earning it.
Yeah. I think especially at that time, because 2012 would have been early days for me coming to LA. And
Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck is this place?
yeah,
Like it was just so, especially coming from a small town, there was like a pride in being from a small town that was like, I'm different than you guys here,
mhm.
but also like, please accept me and like tell me that I'm cool. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, in a way, yes. So let's talk about where you're from. You're from the city that rhymes with fun.
Yeah, Regina. You don't think that's fun.
Well, that's how Elise always said to those.
That's how every rock band that ever came through Regina started off every set.
It's really funny. So you grew up in Regina. When did you first meet Elise?
I met Elise. We were working on a TV series called Incredible Story Studio.
How old were you?
It was like, I think we were, she would know, she knows dates and ages, and I just don't. It's like a blur for me, but I think we were like 12 or 13.
Wow.
And we were on this TV show where kids would write in stories, and then we would, as a rep company, be cast in these different little roles, and they were like 15-minute, you know, short film, whatever episodes. And Elise and I played. She was the moon, and I was a photographer who was lonely, and she came down from the sky to be my friend.
She's shown me footage of it's incredible. And not only was she the moon, but her character's name was Luna.
Luna and my best friend Tess Degenstein wrote that episode.
Oh, that's hilarious. Wait, so
Yeah.
children write the episodes and then other children star in them?
Yes.
This is like the very early days of like Ryan Murphy-esque anthology television.
It was Ryan Murphy as a teen wrote and directed this. How about the height discrepancy between me and Elise, who were the same age, and she was about 6 foot tall and I was 2 feet tall.
So funny. Elise and I were both like this long ass string beans who were like awkwardly lanky kids all throughout puberty, and then somehow ended up like using that to our advantage and going and modeling and selling for a purpose greater than ourselves. Where you were a little bit of a late bloomer.
Oh my God, massively so. I think I was 4'5" when I entered high school. And
Wow.
little bean. And then I didn't grow until like first year of university, which is exactly like my dad. And even then it was like short little, like barely, you know.
Well, as an actor, that really works to your advantage because you were able to play like 15 for, until you were 30.
I was 23 and I played 13.
That's amazing.
Okay, a 13-year-old discovering her sexuality.
Oh my God. Wow. That's so risque.
Oh,
The city I grew up in was smaller than Regina. Red Deer, Alberta is where I spent like middle school and high school, but I didn't really have any opportunities when it came to entertainment industry stuff, acting. There were really no opportunities, but there were opportunities for you in Regina.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, when did you start acting? How did that happen?
I started acting when I was 9. I got my first like paid television job when I was 9 years old. And it was in an episode of a TV show that went for one season and was shot in Regina. It was called On My Mind, and I think it only played in Saskatchewan. But then Incredible Story Studio with Elise happened, and like there was this bizarre, I think there was a great tax break or something. There was some reason why filming in Saskatchewan was like booming at that time. And we could really have like careers start at that age. And so many of the people I grew up with, went on to do Broadway or went on to do films or whatever. Like it's kind of wild to think of that really like kind of simple place sort of fostering this really artistic driven kind of like achieving community. I don't know.
Definitely. Did you, prior to your first paid gig at 9 years old, did you always know that this is what you would end up doing with your life?
Well, I was like dancing from the age of 4. So I was always performing. I was always doing something. And then auditioning for like music, community theater. And that just sort of naturally was the next step. I don't know. And it was just what I enjoyed doing. And I think was reinforced as well. Like, you're good at this or whatever, or liked the hit of adrenaline I got from being on stage.
Right. Positive affirmation from outside sources.
Oh yeah. Like adults being like, good job. And I'm like, great. This is my life. It was just the thing I did. And then I auditioned for movies and I worked in Alberta or I worked in Manitoba or whatever, or Toronto, for years. Like I was always kind of going off and doing things.
And did you know that was what you were going to be doing as an adult? Like that was the end goal?
I think I always, it just sort of happened. And then,
like what else did you think you could possibly do as a child? Did you have any dreams outside of acting?
No, I wanted to be a referee because they looked like zebras for a long time. That didn't happen for me. But no, I think I always, I mean, even when I went to university, I was like trying to find an interest outside of acting and couldn't. I mean, even studying psychology was related back to acting, or philosophy or language. It all came back to like, I wonder how this could serve me in understanding human behavior, or working dialect stuff, or getting to know why somebody might do something, yeah, it was all related back to acting.
So did you go straight from high school to university?
No, I took a gap year and like did nothing. I think I read Harry Potter and was on in an improv company and that was it.
That's amazing. Was this in Regina as well?
Yeah.
And then how old were you when you left to, so like coming from the small prairie town, I went west. I decided to go to Vancouver, and that was also just very circumstantial. I always intended to go to Toronto, and then I just ended up subletting a friend's apartment in Vancouver when she was in the Middle East for a couple of months and fell in love with the city and stayed there for the next 6 years. But why did you decide to go to Toronto instead of going west to Vancouver?
I think there were a few reasons, and one of the reasons was that I knew a lot of people in Vancouver and felt like I might just fall into a comfortable pattern. This was me at 20 being like, I'm going to really fuck with myself, go somewhere where I don't know as many people and like start fresh kind of.
That's funny. I did that when I was older. I did it when I once I'd already lived in Vancouver for 6 years and then decided to move to South Africa. Just to get away from it all, and went back to modeling, and for the first time in my life was surrounded by a community of Black people. I was just so used to being the other, of being the only one. And it was the first time in my life that I was where I blended in, and it was such a breath of fresh air. And then when I came back, that was when all my friends were moving to LA, when it was like at that time where we'd been acting for a couple of years, our resumes were strong enough, it made sense for us to go down. And I moved to New York instead for similar reasons that you did, and decided to not go to Vancouver. I really wanted to be out of my comfort zone and challenge myself to grow and evolve into a version of myself that I would not have had access to otherwise.
Yeah. Do you feel like that happened in the way you expected?
I had no idea what to expect. It changed me at such a core level. I don't know who I would be had I not spent those nearly 8 years in New York. I didn't realize how naive I was until I moved to New York. I think that there is just like a general level of naivete that kind of like exists as like it's like a layer of ozone in Canada. It's just like if you're born
Yep.
you're naive to a certain degree. And a lot of it has to do with what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, whether it's healthcare, gun laws, LGBTQ rights, don't ask, don't tell was never really a thing. Civil union and gay marriage has been legalized for as long as I can remember. We're pretty blessed. We don't have to deal with a lot of the same bullshit that the rest of the world does in many ways, in the United States specifically. Moving there, I learned how to stand up for myself, to speak up, to not constantly apologize for taking up space, to embrace my otherness in a way that I never had the opportunity to before, because it was the first time in my life that as a Black queer man, it was celebrated and I got paid for it. Like, you know?
Yes.
I did a movie when I first got there that was an all Black, all queer cast, like my first month living in New York. And it was like, holy shit. Like, I first of all, I'm not the only one here. Second of all, I'm being celebrated for it. And there's an entire community of people around me that I can see myself in as reflections of each other. I'm learning so much. I'm growing and evolving so much. And there's just such a shorthand when you're around people who understand the same life path that you've had to walk. So that was hugely empowering. And then learning in New York that I'm capable of so much more than I ever gave myself credit for. And I really dealt with some tremendously challenging times. Went through the cliche periods of being so broke, having no, having like, $2.75 and having to make the choice every day to use that for subway fare to make it to an audition or a casting, or use it to buy a $2.50 falafel sandwich so I could feed myself.
Wow.
Before or after a free yoga class. And on many days I would find a subway station that didn't have an attendant and jump the turnstile.
Yeah, totally.
and then afterwards get a falafel sandwich for $2. But throughout all of that, it's like it was so challenging coming from like an upper middle class childhood and always having it pretty good in regards to like material things, that sense of safety. That I went through some incredibly challenging times, and not once did I ever consider turning back or quitting. Or turning around or going home. So I think that it built in me a strength and a resilience or at least it allowed me to tap into that strength and a resilience in a way that I never would have even known was possible had I stayed living in the cushiness of Vancouver.
Yeah. Do you think that community is what allowed you to continue to fight against all of the adversity, like material adversity, like just feeling seen and known and part of something? Or
Yeah, I feel like it made it, it was no longer about me and it became about we. It was no longer about me, like the personal struggle that I faced as a child is like the only Black person in my town, the only queer person in my community. Woe is me, the things I have to deal with, the trials and tribulations of having to navigate my way through a white patriarchal world, all of that. It was like, oh shit, I'm not the only one who's had to deal with this. And not only have people who have come before me found ways and tools to navigate their way through it and to build resiliency within themselves and then clear a path for younger generations to follow after them. But when you're not alone, you have community to hold you up. And so my pathway to advocacy and activism has only come from me weaving myself into the net that supports us all.
Yes.
So I feel like that's where that comes from. What about you? What was it like for you when you moved to Toronto away from everyone and everything you knew?
Well, it was for me, I'd always been so connected to home and to my family in a way that I was like, I'm never gonna leave home. Like I would get so homesick taking tiny little trips with my improv company to blah blah blah, to Vancouver, to Winnipeg or whatever. I was like, there's no way I could ever go. And then taking that gap year, I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. So I like flew, went across to Toronto, set myself up there, missed home deeply. But then I don't know what it was. Coming back here now, I feel like this feels like so much like an old home. It doesn't feel like you know, LA is like the new exciting discovering myself again place, whereas here feels like I've already discovered that or something. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know what it was, but it was like finding improv here, finding like I was working all the time. I was never not working, so I was really fueled creatively. I started studying acting in a way that I actually owned the art. I owned my love of the art form as opposed to was in it because it was what I always did. You know, like I was like
Yeah.
21 and started watching films that shattered this sort of kind of formula of what I thought acting could be, you know, and like touched me in a way that I was like, oh my God, there's so much communication and like expression possible in this art form, and it transcends anything that I've ever seen before. Like this was specifically.
Yeah, tell me what these films were that influenced you.
Did you ever see well, it's called A Woman Under the Influence. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't. I've heard of it.
It's absolutely stunning. And Jenna Rollins in that plays this woman who I guess you could describe her as having some mental illness of some kind, but it's also kind of like the core of who she is, and what makes her so beautiful is this her emotional life and her largeness and her inability to be contained, and she loves so deeply, and just her performance is like astonishing, and it's so fucking funny and so weird. Like she's such a fucking weirdo, and to me seeing that I was like, oh my God, she's transcending in a very like non-aesthetic way, but like in a core way. She's like transcending gender to an extent that I was, or somehow it felt like that to me. I was like, she's not ascribed to, like, you couldn't place her in anything. I don't know. She's just so herself. She's so singular and brave. And seeing that performance, I was like, oh, this is what it could be. It was like, if that is possible for the rest of, oh, it makes me so emotional, but like for the rest of my life, I'm going to seek that. And whatever way that is, you know, whatever, in whatever expression that can take form. Like, I want to touch that level of freedom.
And tell me, in what ways have you found that as the years have gone on? What roles, what characters, what projects?
Well, it's how I approach everything, and it by no means like comes across that way or always feels that way. But the spirit of it is always like to try to touch that kind of undefinable quality of spontaneity and presence and character and like weirdo, you know, really the whatever the weirdo is. Like, I say that word with only love. Like, if somebody's a weirdo to me, I'm like, those are my people, you know what I mean? Like, that's a compliment, you know what I mean?
You listened to the episode I did last season with Sharon Pink, and we were talking about the beauty of being a weirdo. And then she was one of the first friendships that I had where she was so unapologetically herself and so unapologetically weird that it immediately gave me permission to tap into that side of myself as well.
Yes.
So freeing in that. There's something to be celebrated about the weirdo.
Yes. And I love meeting people where I'm like, oh my God, yes. Like I can talk like that, or I can move like that, or I can say that, or I can have that feeling, or, you know, that sense of play that you get with somebody who allows you to be open and allows you to, yeah.
Who is that in your life at this point?
Oh God, there's so many people. I feel very lucky to have collected like a shitload of weirdos throughout my life. Yeah.
I think that's the blessing of also like being in our 30s and being actors, like working in our imaginations and having that be our profession. Because I think of like our parents, for example, at like in their mid 30s, the way that we
all had kids.
had kids.
Like,
they weren't like having slumber parties with their queer friends and going out dancing at clubs and like what what are we doing with that?
Like I put on a wig yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
You did?
I did a birthday video for Matt Friedman, Britta's fiance.
Yeah.
His
Oh.
birthday, so I did a little drag video.
You did?
Yeah, that's what friends are for, honey. Just
well, I thought you didn't do drag.
I'd never. It wasn't actual drag. It was me literally just throwing on a wig, and I have never done drag properly as much as I want to. And Rue has pushed and prodded me to do it, but I'm just holding him to making it happen, to organize.
Did we talk about why you didn't do it? You haven't done it yet? I think we were stoned one night.
Yeah, you're so funny. It's funny. I've only talked about it with Rue because Rue's really the only person who's asked me. I did it in movies a couple of times, but I wouldn't consider it proper drag because it was firstly only for like 2 quick little scenes. Secondly, they were done by straight cis female makeup artists who kind of did like cis female makeup on me. It wasn't full drag makeup. So I didn't get the full effect. Why I was fearful of it, I think so much of it was just the toxic masculinity and patriarchy that was kind of ingrained in me all throughout my childhood, all throughout my formative years, and femininity being shamed. So it was something that I really watered down in myself and like put a lid on and monitored and policed at every turn. For literally for fear of not being physically safe. So I feel like those fears were just so unconsciously ingrained in me that it's something that I've had to work through over the years through conversations with friends and therapy and all of that stuff. I would love to at this point, and Rue said that we're going to. I just, the timing has to be right and he has to get it all organized. I think I could fit into some of his clothes.
Girl, do it.
I fit into some of his boy clothes, so I'm hoping there'll be a by Zaldi that I could slip into.
Oh, I would die.
You did boy drag on Orphan Black.
Well, yes, which was an interesting. I mean, it was highly problematic in looking back, but drag for me is like similarly to what you're saying about the like internalized misogyny. I think why I respond so strongly to drag is because of the power of the femininity of it and the performance of femininity, which I'd always been like shunning. Like I'd always shunned, I'd always judged, and I still struggle with that. Like I still go like, am I dressing like this because because the fear of looking feminine is equated with the fear of being like gawked at or to being unpowerful or being, do you know what I mean? Totally. Like there's something in, if I were to walk out in a dress, I'd be like, I'd feel so on display. Yeah. That I wouldn't feel safe. Do you know what I mean? Definitely. I mean, I relate to it personally, but I can only, empathize based on what I've seen and experienced with my female friends, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. But then to see like, and I have the same actual response to like Nicki Minaj, because she's so, like her face is just like done. I don't know. There's something about it that I'm like, like I love it so much, and also I'm just like I don't understand. I'm so drawn to it. That like beat face. Because that's like a form of drag as well. Well, I mean, she was an amazing judge this season. Oh, because she was brilliant. She was incredible. But like you could feel there was like she had like a connection to that kind of performance of femininity and that performance of that character, and all of that. Ah, I see what you're saying. Definitely. Like the curation.
Especially
It's really-
especially existing in the rap game, which is such a male-dominated world,
yes.
on that femininity and everything that comes with it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. So we're talking, I mean, since you brought it up, we
Do it.
will dive into our mutual obsession with all things drag and specifically Drag Race.
Yeah.
Of how much you love Drag Race. When did you start watching it?
So I'm like a very new convert to it. It's only been a few years for me, but I had like this bout of anxiety, depression maybe 3 years ago, and started watching Drag Race with with my friend Brett, who's been obsessed with drag forever, and she's incredible. But we sat down and watched it, and something about the show like calmed me the fuck down. and like watching Katya and Trixie on their YouTube show, like I couldn't do anything but watch for like 2 months. It was like all I did. I would fall asleep.
I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, I would just like fall asleep watching them. I'd wake up and want to watch, and like just like thinking about oh my God, I have the craziest story too. So depressed, so anxious. The only thing that made sense to me was drag queens. I was walking through West Hollywood. I had just been to the LGBTQ center, dropped off a bunch of clothes. And then I was like, gonna go meet my friend Ben at Hugo's. And I was like, I'm gonna walk it. And I'm gonna walk on Santa Monica. So I walked along Santa Monica. I'm wearing a Trixie and Katya t-shirt. I have my headphones in and I'm listening to Read You, Wrote You.
Yes.
And I should preface this with, I had 2 dreams in which I met Katya. She came up and held me, and I told her how much she meant to me and how much she'd been helping me through this time.
Oh, in your dreams?
In my dreams. Then I'm walking down the street, listening to Read You, Wrote You, wearing this t-shirt, and who fucking comes up but Katya, out of drag, looking fucking hot as shit, in his like little like workout gear, and he sees my shirt and goes, oh my God, and comes at me and hugs me. And I just like shook.
You manifested it.
I guess so. I don't know. I was like so fixated on yeah. And I just walked away and I was wept.
You didn't tell him how much he's been helping you through this time?
I could not speak because first off, Katya speaks at 1,000 miles a minute, and was like,
Katrina Zamolotchikova
yeah.
calls me Katya.
But I died. It was like,
Oh my God, I love her so much. But don't worry, it's a rash, not a herpes sore. So she's one of my favorite queens. I watch all the time, Trixie.
Me too.
And you know what's so funny is that as much as you're a fan of the show and my boyfriend and all of my friends, like I am just as big a fan of the show. I am such a super fan, and that's how I started judging on it. Honestly, I think it was just like from working on Unreal, which is a TV show about reality shows, doing interviews, and people asked me what reality shows I watched. I said I only watch RuPaul's Drag Race. I said it enough times that it got back to the powers that be, the casting director of Drag Race, Alicia Gagaro Magana, and they invited me on. But like as a judge and a super fan, when I watch it now, like I take myself. I don't even have to consciously do it, but I take myself out of it. Like it's a TV show to me. I don't see it as like Rue and Michelle and Ross and Carson, my friends up there, and like some of the queens I know. And like, I mean, I'm a judge and host on Canada's Drag Race now. Like,
yes,
I'm on that set every day for a month at a time. And it's like, still, when I like finish filming an episode and go home, the first thing I'll put on the television is Drag Race. And it's like,
I love that.
It feels like a break from everything that I just dealt with during the day, but it's so how I just.
But how can you be friends with them? Because like I've had to contend with this as well, like meeting people who I'm like obsessed with.
Yes.
How do you be normal?
That's so funny. Well, I feel like with like Rue and Michelle and Ross and Carson.
Yeah.
It was doing the first episode of RuPaul's Drag Race that I guess judged in season 9, and then at lunchtime, oh no, it wasn't even at lunch. I think it was like a week later, Rue and Michelle called me and asked me to come do their podcast, What's the Tea? So we sat down and we had a conversation on that show, on that podcast, and it was just so normal. I mean, the things that we talked about are not the things I would normally talk about in an interview as an actor. We didn't talk about acting. We talked about life, spirituality, mental health, our formative years, our connection to our parents and our ancestors, and how that shapes us into the people that we are today. Like all that real life stuff that I just have conversations with my friends on a daily basis about anyway. So it just so normal and so natural. That was where the foundation of our friendship and our relationship was built. And luckily I had that. That it's like, it very much put us on an even playing field. So, you know, I mean, it's been a couple of years now. So like, when was that? I don't even know, 2017 or something like that. So it's been like over 3 years. And now it's weird because like I said, when I see them on television, it's like, oh my God, it's Michelle Paul. Like, but when I'm in person, it's just Michelle and Rue. I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, how do you have that with other famous people? I mean, I have, like, that's the thing. Like, so many of us in this industry were friends just by circumstance, or because we have so much in common. We walk in the same circles. We get each other. We can relate to each other because we do the same things. But like, I think this conversation is interesting because you and I have been friends for years, but we have never once talked about acting. We talked about acting.
No.
We talk about, I don't, any of these questions I'm asking you, I genuinely don't know the answer to. Because we're friends. We just talk about life stuff, you know?
Yes.
So I
totally.
think it's finding that common ground of what connects us. that makes it, it creates a sense of ease.
Yes.
How have you found normalization in befriending people you've...
I'm bad at it. I'm really bad at it. There's certain people that it's just like, I just can't be myself. I just can't, because I'm just like, I have this real like fraud alert that goes off.
Yeah.
And I just like shut down and can't, I don't know. I get it. It's like, I'm like back in Saskatchewan and I'm just like, wow. You know what I mean?
I genuinely don't get starstruck by people, but I was at M Cafe a couple of months ago and I saw Britt Marling.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. I clammed up and I couldn't move. She was like 5 feet away from me, and normally I would go say hi and say like, and introduce myself and tell her what a big fan of her work I am, but I just froze. I was so starstruck by her. And then my one, I think only the Canadian listeners are gonna get reference for this. Jan Arden.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew it. Badass.
Oh my God, she's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's an amazing singer. She's ridiculously talented as a comedian. It was the first concert I ever went to at 14 years old in Red Deer, Alberta. Her memoir, I think it's called Falling Backwards. It's just stunning. It's so beautiful. And her TV show, Jan, Canadian show that's it's created by Leah Gauthier, Elise's friend.
Totally.
So fucking brilliant. Oh my God, I'm obsessed with it. And I need her as a judge on Canada's Drag Race, just for my own selfish reasons. We also need you. This is not a spoiler. None of the judges have been announced yet, but I can't tell who has been on the show, but I can say who hasn't. You were not a judge on this season of Canada's Drag Race, although you were slated to be. I
was slutted.
You were slutted to be in complications with your show. But damn, girl, season 2, we need you there up on that judges.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Jan Arden, who gives you that feeling that puts you back in a state of like,
it's just all comedians for me. It's comedians. Like I revere comedy. I think it's like the highest art form. I think it's so fucking hard to do. And just like, it's also similar to drag. It's like the thing that I will put on and watch over and over and over again because it's like deeply comforting to me. So those people become like the soundtrack to my day, you know, like podcasts or whatever. I really struggle to like talk to them and be normal because I'm just like, I fangirl so hard. It's bad.
Who are you friends with now at this point in your life and career that like 10 years ago or childhood Tat would have like completely geeked out over? Like unbelievable. Do you have those people in your life?
Yeah, totally, but I'm too embarrassed to say who it is. Because now we're buds. I can't talk like that.
No? Does this person not know that you geeked out over them so hard as a kid?
Probably not.
That's hilarious, Tat.
Or like not to the degree.
Yeah.
Gotta hold something back. You gotta have some power.
Oh my God, that's really funny. I'm the first one to tell people that I'm just a huge, even if I'm not like fandom, like can't function around them. If I'm a fan,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you I'm a fan of you because
Yeah,
it's because it's nice to hear sometimes. You know, it's nice.
I am too. But there's like a point where it's like, all right, relax.
Some of the queens make me nervous, actually. Some of the queens make me nervous. Brooklyn Heights made me so nervous before I ever met her. I just thought she was so statuesque and like
Yes.
perfect. And I met her for the first, and now she's like my co-host on Canada's Drag Race. I met her for the first time at the Emmys with RuPaul just this past year, and like immediately connected with her, and it felt like we'd known each other for years. So that was a big lesson for me in the sense to like not create narratives in my head around who somebody is or how they are going to respond or react to me, you know?
Yeah, why do we do that though? Like, what is that? I don't know what that is. Like, why certain people hold such a power over like your value or like, like.
I don't know, man. Like what? Okay, so that's a very good question, actually, and I would love to ask that of you because I want to know, like, what makes you nervous? You have this calm, cool, collected energy about you. I don't know if you know that or not. I know you're giving me geek face right now because I know you know you're a geek. I'm a geek too. I'm a total.
Yeah.
I get that. But from an outside perspective, like when I first met you or other people who know you, I think that's just in case you're unaware, that is like the perception of Tatiana Maslany, someone who's like very calm, cool, collected, has their energy
Jesus.
together.
Wow.
What makes you nervous?
Everything.
Really?
Everything makes me nervous. Like everything makes me nervous. I get, it doesn't matter how many years I've been performing for, speaking publicly is like the scariest thing I can, like my body just goes nuts. Meeting people.
You're so good at it. I just watched you do when you were wearing my T-shirt, when you did a speech at the Women's March in LA.
I wanted to die. I was so scared. I also get this thing now where in social situations, if I see somebody I wasn't expecting to see and they're maybe a powerful person, I'll blush, like I go beet red. Or if I'm like speaking at a dinner table, like just speaking casually, somebody asked me a question, red, and like a little tremor in the voice. It's so bad.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. See, I can relate to that in the sense that if it's in small settings, if I had to like perform or speak in front of like my family or a dinner party type situation or like making a toast at a friend's birthday dinner or something, oh my God, like kill me. It's the scariest thing in the world to me, but put me on a stage in front of a couple thousand people and I'm totally fine. Like I just find
with a character or yourself.
No, as me. I feel more comfortable and confident in my own skin, like tapping into my own energy of Jeffrey than putting on a character and having similar.
But a large audience as opposed to a small one.
Oh my God! Give me a couple thousand people as opposed to 5 any day.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. I relate to that.
That's really interesting. I love that you. But back to your question. What is that? Why is it that we give our power away to other people and allow ourselves to play small in someone else's light? What is that?
I think I've equated it with openness and vulnerability, like open vulnerability, but I think there's a shame around how vulnerable people, like, I don't mean vulnerability in the sense of like, this is a negative thing. I mean it in the sense of I'm deeply affected by a person looking at me really looking at me or asking me like I'm deeply affected by that kind of seeing and communication and somebody's energy. So I think it like cracks something open in me that then manifests as bright red, nervous voice, you know?
Oh my God, I actually have been with you when you've geeked out over somebody that you loved. Do you remember? You probably don't. There's been too many examples. When we went to the premiere of Elise's movie Ready or Not, and
oh, Willem.
we met Willem, the drag queen, and oh my God, you flipped out. You were so cute.
Well, because Willem also is like deeply powerful. She like sits between Trixie and Katya and is like, girls. Like she's like holding court. You know what I mean? When they have her on the show?
Yeah, definitely.
But also, yeah. And then like looking back at those pictures, all I see on my face is like dweeb, like total dweeb. Like
you look like such a little girl. It's so adorable. I'll post it. I'll like somehow post a link to it in the show notes or something.
Yeah, please do.
About it. It's so good. So back on the topic of drag queens, you're watching season 12 right now, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's helping you and as the rest of the world get through this time of being apart from each other. What are you thinking so far? Who are you? There might be some spoilers in this, kids. So anyone who's listening now who isn't already up to date on season 12 of RuPaul's Drag Race, I think it's like episode 7 at this point.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite queens just went home last episode.
Oh, yes. Yes, I agree.
I'm just going to say it. Anyone who's listening, pause and skip ahead or whatever. Jan.
Yeah.
And went home. How? It's so funny because when I'm seeing the queens this season, I feel like almost every queen who's been kicked off so far, in my mind, could have easily made it to the top 3.
I fully agree. -1, but I won't shade.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But you know what? Yes, I mean, and I don't know if it's the editing, but Jan in that last episode, I was like, I felt like there was a little performance of grief that I was like, I don't buy it. And it sort of like soured me on, but she's fucking hilarious. She's an amazing dancer, amazing singer.
Yeah, ridiculous. I will say that, I mean this completely, truly, and honestly, even though I work on Drag Race, I don't know the inner workings of the, what the producers do and the editors and the story editors and things like that. So I can't say if she was pushed or prodded to say one thing or another, but just from myself playing a reality TV show producer for 5 years on a TV. I know exactly the tricks that you have to do and the little seeds you have to plant in a contestant after they've been through, a very emotional night. The things and plant some seeds in their head before they go to bed that night, and that's the first thing I want to talk about when they get on camera that day. So, that by no means am I saying that is what happened, because I really have no idea, but I just know that that's how good TV is made. People, let's just say that.
I'm literally in television, and I'm just like, it's all real. Nothing has been altered. Like, I just believe. I'm just such an audience member. I'm just like...
Because let's talk about acty schmackty stuff for a minute. So you did one of my favorite shows on television, and one of the biggest shows of last decade, I think, Orphan Black. You guys went for, were you five seasons or 6?
5 seasons, yeah.
And what's life like post Orphan Black?
I mean, it was wild. Like the year after, I was just like, I don't know who I am because
you've been playing 12 different characters.
Yeah, totally. So like all my personality had been doled out into all these different people. And then also just, it was such a formative piece for me. Like I'd been acting for almost 2 decades at that point, but it was kind of like the first time that I was really, the lead in something that required every aspect of me, like all of me. So I learned so much from that. I learned so much from being like a leader on a set and to making decisions and having a voice, growing my voice as the seasons went on, trying not to apologize as much, trying not to, defer as much, but to know that I knew things. So I grew a lot doing it. And also just like as an actor, selfishly got to do something that nobody gets the chance to do that. And I really think that any actor that had been slotted into that part would have just chewed it up. Like, I think that it's what we're built to do. You know what I mean? And to get that opportunity was like ridiculous.
Man, I don't know if everybody is capable of chewing up those roles in the same way that you did, Tat. I mean, I am not blowing any smoke up your ass. It was one of the most challenging shows for any actor in the history of television. I mean, you were unquestionably the hardest working actor in Hollywood for 5 years straight. You had scenes where there was 5 of you in the room at once and it was just you acting to yourself. Like, it's absolutely bizarre. And I watched the show, and I guess this is interesting too. Similar to Drag Race, I'm completely out of it. I mean, I see you on that show, and I see Sarah and Cosima and Helena and Allison, and I don't see Tat. You put your everything into those characters. It was, man.
I appreciate that. I do feel still like, I don't know, there's something about like playing, like being like, okay, I'm Sarah, but I know Sarah isn't Cosima. So that gives me more license to be more this or something. There's something about, again, that relational thing that I'm so interested in terms of identity and who we are, reflected back in the thing that we aren't that's over there, or the thing that we are that's over there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
There's something about that side by side thing that allows the characterization to be larger and more specific and more, you know what I mean? Because we have the opposite right here. So we're not like, oh God, I don't know. It's hard to describe, but to me, it was such an interesting show about identity in terms of like, okay, the biology is this, but how does it express itself based on where we're from, how we were taught to love, or, what kind of love we were given, what our dialect says about how we communicate, all of that.
Definitely, Tat. I mean, from a weird perspective, I could completely relate to it while I was watching it, because at the time the show was airing, I was also in the midst of meeting all of my biological family. Not all of them, but I've met 3 of my biological siblings and my biological mother, all separately, individually. And I didn't meet my little brother until I was 25 years old. I think he was 21 at the time, but he was the first one that I met. And it was so fascinating to see the similarities between us, the mannerisms, personality traits, the physicality, all of the above, even though we had been raised in completely different environments.
Yeah.
Thing with 2 of my other siblings I met and my biological mother. It's so fascinating, the exploration of nature versus nurture.
Totally. And what information is passed on in the womb, that relationship to mother and child, what gets coded into you at that time that then manifests in these mannerisms that you share with people that you've never met. Like, it's wild. I just read this book that was like, took me forever because I'm so slow, but it was so fascinating. It's called A Woman Looking at Men, Looking at Women by Siri Husted. And it's all about the way that we divide nature, nurture, the way that we divide body, mind, where is the continuity between them? Where do they cross over? Where are they intrinsically linked? Biology versus like how we were raised. It's just fascinating. So good. Mind body disconnect, like that idea. It's just so rich, but for me, in terms of like what you're saying, it really feels relevant as well.
So I have a couple of questions kind of all wrapped up in one theme. So while you were in it, and I've been there too, working on a TV show, but you did it to like the nth degree. When you were in it filming that show, it was all consuming. It was like your day and night. You lived it, you breathed it, you slept it. Sometimes it's hard when you're in the midst of something to be able to see it clearly. Now that you have some time and space away from it, I want to know a little bit about how you're feeling. Like, do you miss it? Would you ever do like a reboot or a movie or anything? Could you see yourself going back to that world?
No, I think it's done. Like, I think for me, just as an actor, that chapter is done. And also I think things sometimes drag on for too long. Do you know what I mean? Like, I like the idea of like a thing existing in the time that it existed. And
The only reboot that I'm fully in support of is Jersey Shore Family Vacation. But that's just me. That's just
that is this year.
having some, so, a different perspective and some space away from it. What do you appreciate most about that time? And what were some of the most joyous lessons that you took from that experience?
Collaboration, big time. It's such a solo job, that character or those characters. From the outside, it would seem that way, but what is so not seen or spoken about it as much as I wish it was my scene partner, Catherine Alexandri, who was like the clone double.
Your double, yeah.
Yeah. So the level of artistry, studying, questioning, commitment, choices, all of that, watching me, presence, all of it that she brought to a part that is not seen on camera. And the more well done it is, the less it's seen, was mind-blowing to me. Like, I struggled to come to set sometimes because I was so tired, but I was getting fucking smoke blown up my ass, and people knew me, and I was number one, and I got a fucking sandwich flown in from whatever. You know what I mean?
From Paris. Yeah.
From Paris.
With a golden paycheck to go with it.
Yeah. Wiped my ass when I came back from the toilet. Like,
oh, yeah. That's the life of actors. Don't people know?
Totally. That's what we do. But like, to do it without any of that stuff, with just as much ferocity and just as much commitment, and then to give me all of that when we're doing those scenes together, like, that is just, that's like who the fuck does that? You know?
She does.
She does. Totally.
I love that.
Yeah. So that, like, doing it for the love of the collaboration and for the, that was the big thing for me.
And then what was one of you just did describe some challenges or hardships you faced, but I'm asking this question based on working on Unreal for 5 years and having it be a very challenging set on certain days due to certain elements or certain personalities. And I can look back on it now and really glean wisdom and gratitude for the experience and the lessons that I took from it. But what were one of the more challenging situations you faced that you walked away with a little bit wiser? For me, it was in dealing with certain challenging personalities, to assert boundaries and to trust my intuition.
Yes, I think I relate to that. There's like, I don't know if you relate to this, but a thing in me that's like, yes is always the first thing. It's always yes.
Yeah. And
that's from being an improviser, and that's from being a woman, and that's from being a tiny person, and, all of that stuff. Yes is always first, and being grateful, and being from a small town, and all of that. Learning when my gut is telling me no, and not trying to be like a superhero.
Yeah.
Because then the work suffers, and then you're like, I was angry, and I was resentful, and I was tense, and all of that stuff that just kills the creative flow.
Yeah.
Like, that no can also be a creative and like a furthering. It can further, same way that yes does. You know what I mean? Like, and no from like a place of not like, fuck you, no, but like, just no. Let's find something else.
What is that sweatshirt you're wearing, by the way? It's so adorable.
It's so good. It says sashay away.
Bitch, are you kidding me?
Isn't that great?
You have E.T. in drag that says sashay away. Where did you get that?
It's okay, so it's this website called like Fashion Brand Company.
You'll send me the link. I'll put it in the show notes. That's incredible. I love the...
Yeah, and the artist is called Electric, and yeah, I'm obsessed. It's my favorite shirt.
It makes me so happy when I see you wearing my t-shirt that I designed as well. I'm actually wearing it right now for the listeners. It's my the collab I did with Lemon Lacine for the podcast. I did a series of 3 t-shirts. I'm wearing the androgynous shirt right now. We also have the otherness shirt and the biracial angel shirt. And I sold the first 500 and gave 100% of the proceeds to the LA LGBT Center. And, you know, I usually sell these in person at RuPaul's Drag Con, but because we're in the situation we're in now, Drag Con has been canceled this year. So I'm thinking, just talking about it right now, I'm thinking that maybe I should get a new batch of these made and somehow find a way to sell them and give a portion of proceeds to an LGBTQ centered charity or organization. Let's think about that. You and I are going to
let me know and I will promote it.
Thanks, Tat. I loved you so much in that shirt when you wore it, like I mentioned earlier, to the Women's March. You look so cute in it. And Amanda Crew just sent me a picture of her yesterday of her wearing one as well. And Brita Wool, her character, actually wears both of my t-shirts on her TV show, Mr. Mercedes.
Oh, that's awesome.
The costume designer on that show, what is her name again? Jack Bender's daughter, Hannah Bender, bought like 200 of them for me, and all of the crew on Mr. Mercedes wears my shirts. It makes me...
That's amazing.
I was back in New York last year, and I saw somebody just a complete stranger walking down the street wearing one of my shirts. It was so big.
Oh wow. Okay,
we'll find something cool to do with that for sure. So, you know, we're only a month into this whole physical social distancing thing. But the world around us has changed forever, for as far as I can tell or feel, just from the general energy in the air. The entertainment industry is such a huge part of what is helping people get through this time, binging shows, doing anything to find some comfort and solace in the uncertainty of the world around us. We're so blessed that we have so many streaming platforms and so much content to be able to binge at this point. But my brain can't quite wrap around it or even begin to fathom what life on a TV or movie set is going to look like or be like after all of this. Have you thought about that?
No, I mean, anytime I do, I get so depressed. I just can't even, because it's so, I mean, like, it's a cesspool for like just touching and food and proximity. Like,
oh, I mean, it's not even necessarily like touchy-feely touching. It's just like the necessity of the job, having makeup artists,
like makeup. Yeah.
People, hair people, wardrobe, lighting, everything. Everybody's all up in your face at all times.
I don't know what we're gonna do. I think we'll all just film GoPros. Use a GoPro on our own faces.
You know, oh God, there's got to be a different solution than that. I don't even. And I mean, I can think of like the logistical things, like craft services no longer being a thing, or catering, having them bring individual, you know, catered meals to everybody, to us standing in line getting it, or, you know, but like, how is the whole hair and makeup thing going to be? What about intimacy in scenes? What about when we're shooting on location and all of the...
I live for that shit too. Like,
me too.
I love that element of our job is back to like the touch thing. And I know it's like it can be really fucked with in our industry, but there is something really beautiful about being able to play out scenes with a partner and touch each other and, you know, exist in space together. And like, I don't know how we're gonna get. It's gonna be like, there'll be like an intimacy contract, but also like are you like COVID immune contract? Or like, are you willing to?
Hopefully we'll at least get to that point. I certainly miss giving and receiving at least a dozen consensual platonic hugs a day to different...
Yes.
I do. I mean, I have to preface it with that, unfortunately, at this
I know.
in this age. But I do. I miss that that platonic love. All right, let's keep talking about touch then. Let's relationships. You and I were talking about this the other day. I think it's so interesting that as much as you're like craving physical contact with another human being, we were also saying how as challenging as it was, you and I both went through a pretty major breakups in long-term relationships that were semi in the public light. Like they were a little bit more complicated than just the average relationship. But we were saying, I don't think we prefaced it with this saying that we were so blessed to have had that experience and learned the lessons we learned, blah, blah, blah. But how fucking grateful we are to not be in them right now, to not be trapped in a house with someone.
Yeah. The pressure cooker. Because I feel like any relationship that's like even remotely struggling is just going to explode. And just also I wish I had somebody who I could cuddle with and tuddle with, but also I'm just I can control my space. My emotional well-being is totally my call at this point. I don't know. Yeah, it would be a very different thing to be in a relationship that wasn't right at this point.
I feel so you pointed it out to me when we were talking the other day. You said that what a blessing it was that I worked through over the past year, almost year and a half, of coming out of the emotional wounds from that relationship and really having healed them and found somebody in my life that I'm much more compatible with. There's just such a sense of ease between us and a joyful connection between my boyfriend now, Eric, and I. You've met him. You know that you were my first friend to ever meet him?
No, really?
You were my first friend to meet him at Aubrey Plaza's birthday party last year.
He was he's just the most wonderful. He's so sweet.
I know, he's the best. It's truly hearing other people's experiences of dealing with partnership during this time and hearing how people are just at each other's throats. I mean, all sincerity, it's I have only gotten so much closer to Eric during this time, and we found that we are not only so compatible, we're a really good team. We really complement each other very well, and we have, after a month now, learn how to navigate around each other so that we can give each other what we need when we need it, and also fill ourselves first and take the time for ourselves.
Were you scared at all for the
being together?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't scared. He and I hadn't spent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week together before, but we do spend 6 days a week together. We just have the luxury and freedom of being able to go and do our own thing and go to the gym or go to friends' house or dinners or whatever separately. No, I wasn't scared of being together with him because we get along so well. We don't fight. Yeah. We have stuff that comes up, of course, human conflict that is bound to happen with any two people coming together, no matter what the status of your relationship may be. But it was the living together thing that just on a more emotional and mental level that was kind of intimidating to me, and I didn't know if I was ready for. And although we're not technically living together, for all intents and purposes at this point, we're living together.
Totally.
I just, just because it had only been just over a year since I exited my last relationship, it's
really cool that you were able to recognize a different kind of love coming at you as love. Because I think that when you're so used to getting a certain thing, you do start to believe that that's what it is, right?
Did you have similar relationships with, Rue says it's, same script, different cast. Did you have the same recurring story coming up again and again with relationships?
I think the way I entered a lot of relationships was, this is the opposite of the last thing. And then it would always reveal itself not to be. But on surface or at first glance or whatever, it would seem to be the opposite of the thing that I'd just been dealing with. And so, oh my God, what a relief. It looks so different and da-da-da. I'm not saying this about yours. Yours seems to actually be foundationally intrinsically different.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, but I think that there's a very common thing I recognize in a lot of myself and my friends, this tendency to find like a project or something difficult, and to like bear it as like a kind of, I can carry the emotional burden of this because I am strong and I'm an emotional receptacle, and give it to me. You know what I mean? Like
the story of my life.
Yeah.
How can I make your life easier while simultaneously making my life harder in order to help you and fix you and heal you?
Yes. Yeah.
That was the story of my relationships, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that I am with somebody who is not a quote unquote project, who doesn't need to be healed, doesn't need to be fixed, who is by no means perfect, and neither am I, because none of us are, but has the emotional capacity and emotional intelligence to be able to identify what's going on and
Yes.
navigate how to work through it, whether that's through therapy or a conscious conversation with me, or dealing with childhood wounds, whatever the case may be.
Has that altered in any way your like identity, like as a person who bears the thing,
Yes. It took a lot of conscious effort for the first half of the relationship to not jump in and try to fix or to let it be, just that it's like, he will figure it out. He knows how to do it. He's perfectly capable. It took a lot. There was a lot of inner turmoil within myself to operate in an opposite way from every way I operated in every other relationship. It took a long time. But now that it's become there's a sense of normalcy to it. I am far less stressed, anxious, and inevitably depressed than I've ever been in my entire life.
Yeah. It's so interesting. The last like few months has been like really looking at what are my tendencies in dynamics, whether they be like friendships, people I'm seeing, long-term things, whatever. But it's like, what are my tendencies, and how do I, even though they're the impulse, how do I like parse through what's an impulse or and what's a real desire, and what's following my desire, and what's just like a really bad habit. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And you have to your intuition is always the voice that speaks first, I believe. And when you can look at it from an outside perspective, and it doesn't, the thought of following through with whatever that voice is saying, if it doesn't feel bad, if it feels good, go with that. Just go with that. Just trust that. I feel like that's how you build that muscle of listening to the intuition. But the less you listen to it, the stronger the other voices get,
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, never say never, but in consideration of possible future relationships, do you see yourself once again potentially being with somebody who's in the public eye like yourself?
Oh God. I mean, I don't know. I've always been attracted to performers. Like I'm always, regardless of what, I'm always drawn to them.
Do you know this is the first relationship I'm in with that is somebody that's not in the entertainment industry?
No, that's so funny.
Yes, I've only ever dated actors, models,
Yeah.
People who work behind the scenes in the industry in some capacity. But Eric pointed out to me about, I don't even know, 6 months into our relationship or something, when he was meeting my mother for the first time. He said, this is the first person that I'm meeting in your life who is not in the entertainment industry. Blew my fucking mind. Once again, back to the beginning of this conversation, it's like, thinking about it, I can see that all of my friends, for the most part, are actors or in the industry, but we never talk about it. We don't talk about acting or the industry, so therefore I'm not really aware of it. But
I think it's also like a shameful thing somehow.
I agree.
You're like it's embarrassing when you're like,
it's but being with somebody who's not in the industry has been such a breath of fresh air, because he is emotionally intelligent. Not
what are you saying?
We're emotional monsters, actors are, but and we're celebrated for it. But but he's so emotionally intelligent and down to earth. It's such a breath of fresh air. Give it a shot is all I'm saying.
Well, say, believe it when I say it.
So we're going to have to wrap things up soon, but I have one more question before we go into rapid fire. When this question is about LA, I don't even know how to phrase it really. How has your experience been living in LA? After making, I guess I'm asking this because it took us both a long time to get to the place where we felt like it was the right time to come here. But that said, I've been here for almost 4 years. It's the first, this is just something that I've been aware of consciously for the past couple of weeks, really, but it's the first time in my entire adult life, for sure, possibly my whole life, where I feel completely content, where I'm yearning to be somewhere else, where I'm not, where I don't have this inner turmoil, eating me up inside because I should be doing something else or striving more, or something different, or I'm completely content exactly where I am. I did all the things that I had to do in my teen years, my 20s, all of that to get to this point where I feel like I'm at home.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? How do you feel when you're here?
I'm missing it so deeply right now, like deeply, deeply missing it. And that I'm taking as a real indicator of what that place means to me, like how much it feels like home. And I think it was really hard at first. I was like very much as I was resistant to it, I was also like deeply wanting to be part of it, whatever I thought it was. And so I compromised a lot of who I was and my identity and my weirdo and all of that when I got there, 10 years ago. But this last time when I moved there from New York after doing network for a year, it felt like freedom, like pure freedom and possibility. And I think when I started to make like real friendships with people that were like, that had existed for a long time, and found my community, found like my dance church community, like the classes that I go to, stopped caring that I didn't have a car and just like loving that I was biking everywhere, like still being myself, even though I was in this other city. I really love it. I feel like so lit up by it, and creative, and I just love it. I love it.
I'm so happy to hear that, honey. I can't wait for you to be back here.
I know.
I know. Any day now, Tat. Any day now. What are you doing to help soothe your soul to get through this time? I know that dance is such a huge, huge part of who you are.
It's the top. It was the top. Yesterday, I took 2 dance classes and then put on Diplo's live stream and danced for 4 hours while I was cleaning the house. Like, could not stop. Sunday's my favorite day because of that, because I have this like full day of dance.
Who do you recommend? You recommended
Ryan Heffington, who runs the Sweat Spot in LA. He runs a thing called Sweat Fest, and he teaches Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, Sunday. And he's just a fucking light. Like, he is so generous. He shows up every class with like his full sense of humor and joy and emotional life and hunger and all of it. He's just relentless. He's amazing. Dance Church is on Wednesdays and on Sundays, and that's Kate Wallach's creation, and she's out of Seattle, and she's just it's just the most fucking fun ever.
Is it Ryan that does Dance Church, or is it someone else that does Dance Church?
No, Kate Wallach does it. So she's and then there's a couple other teachers who alternate with her, but it's like,
I'm going to put these people's handles in the show notes for people.
Yeah, do it.
I did do a live stream of one of Ryan's classes the other day, and it was so much fun.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was so much fun. Thank you so much for.
Oh, yeah.
I've been doing live yoga classes as well. Elise and I have been doing them. Pop Sugar and Yoga Works, and that's been a huge reprieve. Just feeling like there's some sense of community.
And seeing like the counter go to 6,000, where 6,000 people are moving with you in the same. It's like
So
When
exciting. So exciting. What podcasts are you tuning into right now?
I listen to The Daily and I listen to Coronavirus Fact or Fiction. Just to remind myself what is happening and to not, so that I have a context again for why we're all in our little worlds.
Interesting. Okay.
But then also I listen to Comedy Bang Bang to laugh. Like I love.
What shows are you binging right now? I know there's one on Netflix you told me to watch called I Need You to Leave.
I think you should leave.
I think you should leave.
It's been out for a couple years now. It was when I was doing network and I was also like mentally struggling. It was the thing I watched over and over, a la Drag Race.
I cannot believe that you did a Broadway show for a year straight, 8 shows a week. What the fuck? How did you do that?
I've been in this is like the second Groundhog Day scenario that I've been in a year.
Really funny. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I think you should leave the shit.
That's I'll definitely check it out. It's a sketch comedy show. It looks so good.
Yeah.
What fun new hobbies are you trying out, if any?
Oh, cooking.
Yeah, me too.
I'm so used to just having eaten out all the time.
Yes. Oh my God. Do you know what we're gonna do? So one of my best friends, Lauren Toyota, has a vegan cooking blog called Hot for Food, and she has a YouTube channel, and she's just like, she's the vegan queen. She's doing this Instagram YouTube show called Hot for Food Takeover, where she's FaceTiming people in their kitchens and having them show her their cupboards and fridges, and she'll like help walk you through making a meal. So I'm doing one with her tomorrow.
Nice.
Because I don't cook normally, but have had to over the past month or so. Thankfully, Eric does, and he's an extraordinary cook. But it's been very interesting.
Have you discovered that you're good at it, or are you like, help me?
No, I'm better than I thought that I was, but I'm still, in comparison to Eric, I'm still not nearly there when it comes to like the flavor profiles. And I think seriously, I think it comes down to something as simple as tasting as you go along, because I don't taste the food as I go along.
What? What are you talking about?
Who knew, girl? Who knew? I think you'll have fun with Toy Toy. I'm gonna hook you two up. I think you should do a Hot for Food takeover, and
she would be like, you're a lost cause, and hang up on me right away.
I can help you do like a non-vegan meal as well, because you're a little bit of a meat eater. I've been making kombucha and making homemade smudge sticks. Like,
oh, come on, what are you talking about?
Because I have so much stuff in my garden. I have like rosemary and lavender and sage and stuff. So I've been plucking it all and drying it and making smudge sticks. I'm such a witch. I know.
Your isolation is no one else's isolation.
My friend Jenna Wortham, her and I spent this morning swapping kombucha flavoring tips, because she's making kombucha at her house in Brooklyn as well.
I can't deal with the mother. It freaks me. That is such a gnarly.
It's a living thing, Tat. It deserves.
I know, but it's too gnarly. It's too alive. Like the fact that it's alive.
It multiplies like crazy, and I have an abundance of them right now. Actually, I had to give one to my friend Brittany Allen, so that she could start making kombucha. But I'll brew a couple batches for you, so you don't have to deal with the SCOBY itself.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I have the mother kept at the home.
Separately. Where or when do you feel most authentically yourself?
Where or when? I think laughing with my friends, dancing.
I love that. What a great answer. What do you celebrate or love most about yourself?
The beginning of this, I would have said my resilience, and now I think I celebrate most my connection to the people I love.
What is some of the best advice you've ever received?
I always say breathe when I get that question, but I think that's like But I think that still holds true.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yes, but I haven't looked at it in a long time. It's that beautiful Martha Graham.
Oh, yeah.
There's a vitality. There's a life force of vitality, a quickening. What is that, Martha?
Yes. Can you recite it?
There is a vitality, a life force, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And there's only one of you in all time. This expression is unique, and if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how it compares with other expression. It is your business to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep open and aware directly to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. No artist is pleased. There is no satisfaction. This is the part. There is no satisfaction whatever at any time. There is only a queer divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others.
Girl, pre-queer divine. Tongue pop, honey.
To Edwards' tongue pop, which is actually in the quote, weirdly.
Who knew? Who knew? Okay, last question. What is whispering inside of you right now? That inner voice telling you to go left or right or to do this or that. What is whispering inside of you the loudest right now?
Get out of here.
Ooh. And come back to LA. Is that what you're saying?
Like, I think that would be like one version of it, but I think it's like I am not used to sitting. I'm not used to being in one place.
Yeah.
I move constantly. So it's like, that's the strongest urge right now.
I think that this is a fascinating experiment in being human for us to have been forced into a place of isolation, solitude, introspection, self-reflection, and discovering aspects of our personalities, our qualities of character, our general ways of being, discovering new things about ourselves that we would otherwise not necessarily have had access to. So challenging as all of this is for so many of us, I also think that it's an interesting and priceless opportunity for us to re-navigate the way that we wander through this world. Because individually, I think we're doing a pretty good job, but as a whole, as a collective, as a species, we were really going off path, and Mother Nature just simply wasn't having it anymore. And we have to, this is the time for us to course correct. So hopefully when things start to loosen up a little bit, you'll be able to get out of there and find a new way of being in the world that that soothes your soul and allows you to be used for a purpose greater than yourself.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah.
Yeah. I love you, Tad. I can't wait for you to come back.
Thank you for this. This was so nice.
Yes, it was a great and this was wonderful.
There's very few times. Well, there's few times where the Zoom thing feels visceral. Like I felt like, I think when we hang up, I'm gonna be like, wait, where's Jeffrey? I thought he was here.
It was a good flow. I feel the same way, actually. Yeah. I feel like something's been so pressure filled with like dinner parties and cocktail hour and house party hang. Like there's such a level of pressure around it, but this was
all those fun things. You're like, all those fun
things. Fuck them. Let me get back to reading my book. All right, everyone, we are out of time. Thank you for tuning into my frequency, and thank you so much to my incredible guest, Tatiana Maslany, for having this conversation with me. I love you, Tat.
Love you too. Thank you.
And if I can leave you all with one thing, it's this: celebrate yourself and love each other. I'm JBC, and I love you. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. You can support us by sharing this episode with a friend and spreading the love with each other. You can find us at conversationswithothers.com and reach us at conversationswithothers on Instagram, at CWO Podcast on Twitter, and conversationswitotherspodcast@gmail.com. Our outro song is Looking for Another by Brittany Allen.